What is alignment? Well, it's like how your car's tires are pointed, right? Well, yeah, more or less. Why, though, do you care about how your car's tires are pointed? Your wheels seem to go straight enough. You're still driving down the road, right? It may seem like a pretty small thing, but alignment is so important in affecting how your car behaves. Is it squirrely? Is it darty? Does it pull to the right? Not only that, it affects how long your tires last and how much grip you actually have, and even your fuel economy. A lot of people think that it's really complicated, but it's not. It's actually pretty easy. It just takes a little time and understanding to perfect it and get it just right. So in this episode, I'm going to show you exactly how to do just that. I'm going to teach you how to do an alignment on your own. So along the way, we'll explain the different things that we're adjusting, like the camber, caster, and toe, which I'm sure you've heard of before. We'll talk about why you adjust each and what effect tweaking each one will have on your car, especially in a performance sense. But I'm very excited because this is going to be a little bit of a learning experience for us both. I've done plenty of in-shop alignments on alignment racks, but this is my first garage alignment, so it's going to be a little bit of a learning experience, and I'm excited for it. And by the end of this video, we're both going to be alignment wizards. I'm Zach, this is Money Pit. Let's figure it out. All right, so alignment. The basic concept is aligning your suspension to affect the angle at which your tires contact the road. All right, we're talking like this. This is camber. And we're talking like this. This is toe. And then we're talking like this for caster. If you imagine that my arm is the steering axis, or the axis that your steering pivots around, we've got positive caster up front. If my arm's the steering axis, to negative caster. Got it? Okay, so what kind of tools do you need to perform an alignment at your house? Usually, maybe some sockets and a socket wrench, some wrenches of the regular sort, and an adjustable wrench can be your best friend when you're doing alignment stuff, because a lot of these parts are going to be a little big. All right, so the hand tools are pretty basic, but in order to measure the alignment angles, you're going to need some specific tools of some sort or another. So first, I bought these on Amazon. These are camber, caster, and toe plates. So these will measure all three of the alignment angles, and they're only about 200 bucks. So these should be pretty nice. Now, for measuring toe, well, you can make a set of toe plates, or you can also use string. Something that you need to think about when you're making alignment adjustments is that your car needs to be loaded when you make the adjustments, which means it needs to be sitting on its tires like it normally would be. So how do you do that and get under the car and make adjustments? Well, in my case, I went to the old Home Depot, bought some lumber, and made some stands like this. Pretty rudimentary, but I think they'll do the job. And we've got some masonite here, so they're kind of slippy, because the other thing that's important is that your suspension isn't bound up and is pretty free to move. So we're going to put the car down on these. I think we'll do that right now, and then we'll talk more about caster, camber, and toe. All right, let's start with caster. Caster is the backwards or forwards tilt of the steering axis, which tends to stabilize steering in a straight direction. What does any of that mean? So caster angle is the tilt of your steering axis. Okay, so your steering axis is the axis that your knuckle and your wheel and your tire all turn around when you turn your steering wheel. On a double wishbone car like the Miata, the steering axis is an imaginary line through the upper and lower ball joints, because that's what determines the angle of your knuckle, the forward or back tilt. Got it? So if we draw an imaginary line through the steering axis, we can see that it would intersect the ground in front of the tire. But your tire touches the ground all the way back here. So when you're rolling forward, what that means is that there's a lot of drag back here where your tire touches the ground, a lot of force pulling backward. And since the steering axis is all the way up here, the force pulling back here, the wheel automatically wants to snap around and rotate that steering axis to pull itself back to straight. So that's why when you take a turn, the steering wheel wants to come back to center after every turn you take. So now that we understand that, let's try to understand how to measure caster. To do that, I'm going to use those toe plates. We're also going to have to use my homemade turn plates. We're going to take a measurement at 2 different points. First, for this wheel, I'm going to turn the wheel 20 degrees to the left, so I'm going to set 0 on my plates. And then I'm going to swing 40 degrees back to the right, and then I'm going to take a measurement. Then I'm going to multiply that measurement by 2, and that's going to be our caster measurement. Okay, so we have currently 6.2 degrees of positive caster. Awesome. I'm going to write that down, take note of that, and we'll move on. All right, now the right side, same thing. Okay, Saron, turn the wheel to the right, 20 degrees, please. All right, so we've got 4.7 degrees positive caster on the right front, which seems to be a little bit less than that side. Thing doesn't drive perfectly straight right now, and that might be why. Okay, there's no caster adjustment at the rear, so on to camber. So camber is essentially tilting the wheel in or out from the wheel well. When the bottom of the wheel is more tucked in, positive camber, okay? So what is the point of each? Well, beyond just trying to cram your two wide wheels under your fender, from a performance perspective, negative camber is a good thing up to a point. You see, in a hard corner, the outside tire is gonna wanna roll under the car. And that means that your tire's contact patch will be sacrificed, which means your grip will also be sacrificed. But if you add a little negative camber to the equation, then we're perfectly prepared to take that hard corner. Positive camber isn't really good performance-wise, but it does have some benefits. Sometimes big buses or RVs will use a little bit of positive caster because it makes turning them big betties a little bit easier. We don't really care about that in this case, so let's measure our camber as it is right now. To do an alignment, you need to be on a level surface, ideally perfectly level. And this is pretty level. It's very close, but it's not perfectly level. So with the digital gauge, what I can do is zero this thing out to the level that we're on, like on these stands, and then measure camber for an accurate measurement. Negative 2.45 degrees of negative camber. Let's write it down and keep measuring. So at the rear, we've got negative 3.55 degrees camber. Okay, negative 1.8 degrees camber. 3 degrees negative camber. All right, so here we've got all of our caster and camber measurements written down so we don't have to remember them. Let's keep moving. All right, let's talk about toe. Toe is probably the easiest aspect of an alignment to describe and the easiest to remember. Just think of your own toes. Point your toes in, that's toe in. Point your toes out, and that's toe out. It's as simple as that, really. A little bit of toe out can be beneficial for increased turn in or steering response because your tires are kind of already ready to turn. A little bit of toe in will help straight line speed stability. So a lot of performance oriented alignments will go with a tiny bit of toe out. A lot of Miata guys will go with a tiny bit of toe in. I think we're gonna split the difference and go with zero toe, just straight ahead. So let's get after it. So we got the toe plates set up here on the front wheels, and now we're gonna take our toe measurement. These plates, they touch the lip of the wheel here, so we're measuring from the wheel again, and then we'll take a measurement from the rear of these toe plates and the front. And then we're gonna figure out our toe, see what it's at currently. All right, so we've got our two measurements from the tape measures on the toe plates, and basically you plug those into this little formula right here. The rear tape reading minus the front tape reading, okay? The front tape reading is a little bit longer than the rear tape reading, okay? So if we exaggerate that a little and think about it from a top-down perspective, our front tape reading across the fronts of the wheels is longer than our rear. So if you look at it like that, you can see that's a toe out condition. But that is just total toe. We don't know where that toe is coming from, so we got to figure out how to measure individual toe. And I will show you how to do that using some strings, which I think is going to be awesome. But first, let's talk about our target specs and what we're trying to hit, what we're going for here. So for target specs, this is what we're going with. In the front, 5 degrees positive caster, both sides. 2 degrees negative camber, both sides. 0 degrees toe, no toe, dead straight. Then in the rear, we're gonna do 2 degrees negative camber as well, and then we're gonna do a 32nd of an inch of toe in on each side, so a little toe in on the rear. So that should give us a pretty good, mildly aggressive, yet still drivable and good tire wear alignment. But how did I come up with that? How do I know that? Well, I went on the internet. There's a company called Flying Miata. If you have a Miata, I'm sure you're familiar with them. If not, check them out, they're great. They have a lot of good write-ups as well on their website, including one about doing alignment. And in that write-up, they give you their recommended specs, which are close to these. I tweaked them a little bit, made them a little bit more aggressive. I added a little negative camber and went with no toe in the front, where they recommend a little toe in. So I think this is gonna be a good setup for what we want for the car, but there's only one way to find out. Let's put these specs into the car. Okay, so we are ready to make some adjustments to the Miata, which is very exciting, but before we make any adjustments, we need to talk about the order in which we make them, because it matters. There's an order of operations to doing alignments. So the order that you're supposed to do things is caster, adjust caster, then adjust camber, then adjust toe, and that should be okay. But if you do toe first and then adjust your caster, the caster change will also change your toe. So, that said, we're gonna adjust our caster. Meet me under the car and I'll show you how. Should be pretty easy. Okay, where were we? All right, we're under the car. We're under the car now. Hey, and we're gonna adjust caster, okay? So the way to do that on the Miata is this bolt right here. This is what's called an eccentric bolt, which means that when you turn it, it changes where the position of this control arm mounting position is. It'll move it in or out, which will ultimately affect the lower ball joint position, which changes caster. Okay. Okay, 285, we'll take that. 285, so that's, multiply that by 2, and what do we get? 5 point, what did I say, 285? 5.7, is that 5.7? I think it's 5.7. So that's, we're in the right direction. We came down half a degree, but we need to come down another 7/10 of a degree. So same adjustment I just made on this side, just more of it. All right, let's swing that puppy. That's the one, this is the one, I can feel it. 2.4, 2.4? Dude, is that a joke? Oh, I went too far, what am I, stupid? I'll take it. 255, so we're at 5.1 degrees. We're gonna go with that. Let's measure the other side and see how that side's going. Okay, surround. 20 degrees to the right, please. More. Yep, okay. One back, right there. Well, it seems that we went in the wrong direction on this one. I guess I can believe that. Keep going. 2.5. It says 2.5, I'll take it. 2.5 times 2 is 5. That's what we're going for. All that side done. All right, so I'm gonna lock down my caster measurement and then we'll move on to camber. Okay, so now we're getting ready to adjust our camber. We've got the same tools, which is kind of handy because it requires the same tools. It's another eccentric bolt. So this one, as we turn it, it will pull the lower control arm in or out. So we're going to turn our eccentric bolt to pull it back in, okay, to straighten the wheel out a little bit. And we'll see if we can, you know, hit it first try. Okay, so we made a little, too far. Ooh, daddy. I would really like to see a 2. Just do a DIY alignment. We're gonna take that. That's just fine. That's just fine. To the other side, huh? What, did we go too far? 270, what did you do, nothing? Dude, give me a break. What? I literally don't. I don't know how that happened. We'll take it. All right, let's do the rear camber. All right, so now we're at the rear of the car. We're gonna make our first adjustment back here. So we're gonna do that by adjusting these 2 eccentric bolts. Basically, to move them out, you get more negative camber. Pull the bottom more in, you get more positive camber. 2 flat, 2 on the dot. 2.1. We were shooting for 2, but that's as low as she's gonna go. Okay, let's do the other side. What do you think? I love it when a plan comes together. Okay, so that's caster adjusted, and that's camber adjusted. Now we gotta figure out toe. All right, so to adjust toe, what we're gonna do here is set up a string box. Pretty simple in theory, we just need to build a perfect box around the Miata with string, and then we can measure from the string to the wheels, to the front and the rear of the wheels, to see what our toe's looking like and adjust from there. So we've got our strings set up, but how do we get them square to the car? Well, right here I have the track width for the Miata. So the front track width is 55.5 inches, the rear track width is 56.2 inches. That's important because the rear track width is a little bit wider than the front. So for the string to be square, the string needs to be 0.7 of an inch closer to the rear wheels in total, or 0.35 of an inch closer to each rear wheel for it to be square. Precision measuring milk crates, okay? All right. We've taken our measurements from the wheels. Now we're gonna measure from string to string. And if those measurements are the same, front and rear, then we got a box, baby. Gotta not pull that string right there. Oh, buddy, 66 3/4, dead nuts. We got a string box and we're ready to adjust some toe. Okay, now we've got our strings all set up and we're square. Now we can take a toe measurement and then adjust. And from when we took that toe measurement earlier, we saw that we had some toe out. And it's visible against the string. You can see that there's more room between the string and the back of the wheel than there is at the front. So the wheel's pointed a bit that way, and it's the same on the other side. It's also important to note that we've got the strings running through about the center of the wheels because you want to measure toe from opposite sides of the wheel. So now what we're going to do is take this measurement from the string to the wheel and from the string to the wheel, and then we're going to adjust and try to get those measurements equal, make them the same, and that's how we'll know we have a perfectly straight zero toe wheel. To adjust the toe, we need to adjust the tie rod ends, and to do that we need to break this jam nut loose, and then we can spin the shaft, which will push the knuckle that way or pull it in. Now let's take a look at things and see if we've affected any change. 0.78, so we're at 7.0 here. So, okay, so cool, we're close. Now I'm going to bring the toe back out a little bit and even it up. It is important to note that while you do this, while you make any toe adjustments to the front, you got to make sure your steering wheel is straight, or else, well, come on, back under. Ding, 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 ding. Okay, we're at 0.71 away from the string on both sides. It doesn't matter what that number is, it just matters that they're the same. That means that we're straight with the string and we know the string is straight. So that means we've got no toe in this wheel now. Onward. Now that we're in it, this is kind of the easiest adjustment to make. And often this is what you get when you go to a shop for an alignment. On a lot of cars these days, caster isn't adjustable and often camber isn't either. So on a lot of newer cars, especially front wheel drive stuff, you'll just find toe to be the only thing you can really adjust. And it's honestly pretty easy to do at home. Ow, that part of my hand feels real weird now. We'll take it. That's zero toe on the front. So now our front wheels are aligned. Now we got to do toe on the rears, which is not quite as easy to adjust as the front because there aren't just tie rods. It's adjusting those same eccentric bolts that we used for camber. So let's go do it. Okay, so this wheel is now aligned. So we've got a 32nd of an inch or 0.8 of 1 millimeter toe in on this rear wheel. Now we need to do the same thing to the other side, and then we're done. Now that should be pretty freaking close.
Come on, baby.
.9 of a millimeter. I'll take that. I think that's it, finally. We're gonna have to tighten all our bolts, make sure everything's good and tight, very tight so nothing slips. I'm gonna paint mark all of the eccentric bolts too so we can tell if anything does move. I think that's gonna do it for tonight. The next thing we need to do is go for a test drive, and I'm gonna do that tomorrow because it's late. Well, it took a lot of work, a lot of guess and check, a lot of trial and error, but the car goes straight down the highway and it feels great in the twisty stuff, which is a lot better than it felt before. Feels nice and balanced. Left turn feels identical to a right turn now, which is great. It feels like me and the car are really starting to communicate, so that's nice. Other than that, we used a lot of tools today, so I'll put all of them in the description below so you guys can check that stuff out if you're interested. Overall, I think I'm happy with the settings that we went with. I think the car feels really good, although next time around I'll probably max out the front caster just to get a little more stability. And I would like to someday take the car to an alignment shop and put it on a machine and have them measure our settings just to see how accurate we're getting in the garage. I think that would be interesting. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you learned something. I definitely learned a lot this week. A useful skill, which is aligning your car, which, especially if you're going to the track, it's nice to be able to tweak that stuff. We're going to Donut every day. I know you guys are cooped up during this quarantine, and I know that sucks, so we're gonna try to bring you as much entertainment and information as possible. So we're bringing you content every single day of the week. So make sure that you're subscribed to the channel and that you have the notification bell ringed so you get up-to-date notifications on what we're releasing. Thank you guys so much for watching it. We couldn't do it without you. See you next week.